I have always admired Jacksonville, and my trip today with Michael and talking to a number of you at the lunch left me really, really optimistic about what the future looks like for this city. When we were on the top of the tower at the River Club, and I was able to look out and see all of those city-owned assets and all of that undeveloped property that you have available to you. And I think about where Tampa was and how we started. We didn't have either 1/10 of the river in terms of size and 1/10 of the assets that you now are poised to redevelop. We were a donor city to places like Charlotte, North Carolina, and Austin, Texas, and Raleigh, Durham area, and God forbid, Nashville. We were a donor city of our best and brightest kids. We were a donor city of that intellectual capital, that talent, our children and our grandchildren who were educated in Tampa, that were raised in Tampa, but they were leaving Tampa for somebody else and for somewhere else because that's where the opportunities were. And I knew that we had to change Tampa's economic DNA if I was going to be able to keep my kids and thousands of other kids like my two daughters in my city. If you want to create an environment where you are not losing your kids to Tampa, Florida, if you want to be able to compete for the best and the brightest from around the globe, if you want to be a destination for corporate relocations, if you want to be a place where talent wants to come, no company is going to relocate to Jacksonville because you just built a Best Buy in the suburbs. Cities are the heart and soul of your community. The urban core is your front door. This is a place that is brimming with potential. Now the question is, what do you do? And I will tell you that talent attracts jobs. Talent attracts companies. The days of, like my father's generation, of people being wedded to a city because that's where the steel mill was, or that's where the paper plant was, and their value was found in their backs and in their arms, not in their heads. Today's generation and some of the young people that I've met here today, they can live anywhere in the world that they want to live. They are mobile. So the choice for Jacksonville, as it was for Tampa, is are we going to create a place, which we were not, that we can compete for that talent, where my kids are not going to go to Charlotte, North Carolina, but they're going to want to come to Tampa, Florida. That's the journey that you are on, Jacksonville. But it highlights problem solving over ideology and progress over partisanship. You know, when you're in the mayoring business, you don't have time to worry about who's a Democrat or who's a Republican. That's not your job. Let the other fools fight about that. Your job is to build a city. And there's no Democratic or Republican way to build a city. So when we finished the Riverwalk, what we saw happen was private sector interest, private sector investment. And I knew if I built it, they would come. And so we had a number of parcels of land on the waterfront, very similar to what you have, that were fallow, that were abandoned, that hadn't been used in decades because nobody came to downtown Tampa and no one came to the waterfront. At this period of time, before I took office, there were probably 600 people that lived in downtown Tampa. 400 of them lived in the Morgan Street jail. But once we made that investment in our waterfront, what you saw was significant amount of private capital being deployed because they wanted proximity to the waterfront. They wanted access to the water. They knew their buildings would be significantly of greater value by proximity to the waterfront. They knew that those young workers who wanted to live, work, and play in the downtown core wanted to be in close proximity to the water. The water will become the magnet for everything that you do. If you want people to take ownership of Jacksonville and your urban core, you've got to make it a place that welcomes everybody and that everybody feels comfortable. Whether you live in public housing or whether you live in million-dollar mansions, it is the common ground for your city. It is the gathering point. It is the place where everybody is equal. It is the place that doesn't charge. It's the place that these kids can come and play in the splash pad. It's the place where kids in the middle of a hot summer who live in public housing projects across the river who don't have air conditioning in their house, their moms can bring them there. They can play, they can cool off, and it becomes their front lawn as well. It is so important that as you build, you consider that you are a diverse community and that everybody needs to be welcome in your parks, in your downtown, and that you celebrate the inherent goodness of everybody. Cities that don't are never going to be those places that those young people want to come. And storytelling is important for mayors because you've got to lay out what that vision is. You've got to let people see what's going to happen at the end of this. You've got to tell them about the journey. You've got to lay out for them exactly what the expectations are, but folks, at the end of the day, this is what we're going to do together. So I did my State of the City in right there with the backdrop of the downtown over my shoulder. The stage was there. The people were back this way. And I asked them to believe, to see for themselves, to just close their eyes and not see what we've always known, but see what could be. And it's not an either-or situation. It's not parks versus development. You can do both in the same. You can do both and be successful and have one complement the other, one help to activate the other, one energize the other, one become the place where restaurants and museums and bars are on the ground floors of these restaurants that spill out into these open areas where people can take their drinks. We set up a system where you can get a wristband and you can get a drink at any number of the restaurants along the Riverwalk and then go walk the Riverwalk with that wristband. We then took the USF Medical School, University of South Florida's medical school, and moved it from the main campus into the Water Street development. So USF, again with the help of the state of Florida and Governor Scott at the time and Speaker Will Weatherford, created a medical school in downtown Tampa. So we were building a medical educational cluster that will help drive the economy moving forward. I was famously quoted as saying, much to the chagrin of the Tampa Bay Rays who would like to be on the Tampa side, I said that the relocation of that medical school is more important than the Tampa Bay Rays coming here. Because we're talking about creating real jobs and real opportunities, attracting world-class researchers, world-class faculty. Those medical students tend to stay within 60 miles of where they do their residency, so we are now building an entire intellectual cadre of bright young people. There will be companies who will want to relocate around that medical school to take advantage of the research that takes place there. Tampa General Hospital is right across the river, and so that's the main teaching hospital for the USF Med School, and so the connections are great. That cluster, that medical educational cluster in your urban core is significant. It's a game changer for a city. If you have universities here, get them to invest in your downtown core, get them to build in your downtown core, and I guarantee you it will change the dynamics. As you build, activate. As you build, celebrate the amazing diversity of your community. As you build, include a lot of public art and a lot of public amenities. As you build, celebrate the little things, the little surprises in that urban environment that you come across that you say, wow, I wasn't expecting that, or I'd never thought that was going to be here, or let me look at and try to figure out what this is. The other key, activate the hell out of it. I created more events than you can possibly imagine. And the reason I did it was because I knew if I could create events that would bring people downtown who had not been there before or had given up on downtown and they saw what had happened, they would look around and they would inevitably say, dang, look at this. Look what happened downtown. I've never knew this was here. I used to go out and walk the Riverwalk. I'd put sunglasses and a hat on, and I would eavesdrop on people, hoping they didn't know who I was. And inevitably what you would hear, particularly from longtime Tampanians, who had never come downtown because they had written off, you would hear them say, wow, what the hell happened here? When did all of this occur? This is really cool. I want to take my family here when they come and visit me. When your next mayor, in every speech that he or she gives, talks about where we're going and how we're going to get there and how everybody needs to pull at that rope and how everybody needs to believe that in spite of the ups and the downs and the ebbs and the flows and the trials and the tribulations of what you've gone through, that together we're going to get there. When that happens, it's magical. That's when you transform a city. That's when you realize the hopes and the aspirations that all of you hold for Jacksonville. If you're going to compete for that intellectual capital that you were losing to Tampa, that I was losing to Charlotte, North Carolina, you got to build a place with a heart. And you got to build a city with an identity. And you got to create a place that people want to be, where you can celebrate that amazing diversity of this community, where you can bring young talent together, where they will choose to live and companies will choose to come because they have chosen to live, work, and play in your community. Your downtown is your front door. It is your heart and soul, and that river is the best asset that you have. But I can tell you at the end of the day that this is going to be your decade. This is going to be your moment, Jacksonville, when you rise to the occasion, when you put aside those past differences, when you stop worrying about who's doing what to whom, when you stop caring about who's a Democrat or who's a Republican, and you focus on what it means to be a citizen of this community and what it's going to take to make this the place that your kids want to stay. This is your moment. This is the time when you decide your tomorrow needs to start today. The assets that you have are unbelievable. I wished I had them. The consensus is coming together. The leadership is ready for a change. That happens in cities. That's a good thing. But over the next 3, 4, 5 years, particularly with a new mayor coming and that new energy coming, you need to help he or she be successful. You need to coalesce behind that person. And you need to drive this vision of what a better Jacksonville can be. This is your window. This is when your amazing history and hope meet. Jacksonville, you've had great leaders, elected and unelected, that have given you your roots. It's time to give yourself your wings. Let's get it done, Jacksonville. Thanks.